So welcome to the second video experiment for the Medicinal Chemistry for Drug Discovery Lab course.
So this is the tutorial for the Boc Protection of our amino acid. So for this experiment we're going to need a stirrer hot plate with a clamp stand.
We've got our other amino acid starter material here, some Boc anhydride and potassium carbonate, some acetone and water as the solvent.
Of course a stirrer bar and some paraffin for the top. So for this we're just going to clamp up our round bottom flask and pop in the stirrer bar, and then we can add the solvent. Don't worry here too much if it doesn't all completely dissolve. Just try and get as much as you can off the sides there. So once we've added the solvent, we can pop the funnel in the top and add the
Potassium carbonate.
And then finally we've got the Boc anhydride to add. Now Boc anhydride has a melting point of about 23 degrees, so on a hot day it might actually turn to a liquid, and that's fine. You can just syringe it up using a syringe and needle and add it via a needle instead. Okay, so I'm just going to add in Boc anhydride here. If you are using it all as a solid, you can always add a little bit more solvent just to wash it down the sides. Once that's all added, we're just going to make sure that we've got the flask labelled, preferably with your name and the number of the experiment. I'm just going to pop a bit of paraffin over the top of it so the solvent doesn't all evaporate overnight. And that can be left until the next session.
Okay, so the reaction's been stirring overnight now, and so we're going to acidify it with some 2 molar HCl to quench the reaction. So we're going to use 2 molar HCl. I've got an ice bath here just in case the reaction gets a little bit hot while we're doing the quench, and I'm going to test the pH using this universal indicator pH strip, and we're aiming for about pH 3 here. You don't want to go too far because then that can deprotect the Boc again, but around pH 3 is okay. So if I just test the pH to start with, and we can see we're kind of around pH 10-ish at the minute. We're going to aim for 3. So you might see some effervescence as we add the acid, which is just the acid neutralising the base in there. And I'm going to keep testing the pH at regular intervals, to make sure we know when the reaction is acidic. See, we're about pH 7 now, neutral, so we're starting to get towards this. I'm going to add the acid slightly slower, start to check the pH of our regular intervals. Okay, so as you can see now, we've got the pH indicator paper showing that we're at about pH 3, which is perfect. So we can carry on with the rest of the workup.
We can
add this to a separating funnel and extract it between ethyl acetate and saturated brine. Now we have our combined organics. We can dry this with magnesium sulfate and filter it off to afford the final product. Okay, so we've now dried our fractions with magnesium sulfate and filtered that off through a filter paper. We can now rotary evaporate the resulting solution to afford our final product, which we can submit for an NMR with the help of